Our world map is missing entire kingdoms that once ruled the oceans. These lost maritime empires did not just fade away, they left behind a hidden blueprint of our ancient past. By the end of this journey, you will see history through an entirely new lens, one where the sea, not the land, held the ultimate power. Why did a civilization of master sailors suddenly abandon the waves that made them rich? How could a single naval battle in a freshwater lake change the course of a religion? We are about to uncover how forgotten thalassocracies shaped everything from our alphabet to our global economy. What forgotten story from the deep sea most captures your curiosity? That first sail was more than just cloth and rope. It was a new kind of courage. Picture the earliest sailors not as conquerors yet, but as families huddled on a log raft, their world defined by the shoreline they could never lose sight of. For them, the deep ocean was a realm of monsters and endless, terrifying emptiness. What changed everything was a simple observation. Someone, somewhere, watched the wind push a leaf across a pond and had a revolutionary thought. What if the wind could push us? This was the moment the sea transformed from a barrier into a doorway. The invention of the sail meant people were no longer just fighting the water with paddles. They were learning to partner with the sky itself. Voyages that were once exhausting and short became longer journeys of possibility. Now, a community could transport not just people, but heavy goods, food, and precious stones across vast distances. This was the true beginning of a network, a web of connection being spun across the water. We see this echoed in archaeological finds from wildly different parts of the world. In Norway, rock carvings depict sleek, curved boats from over 8,000 years ago. At the same time, far away in the Arabian Gulf, ancient settlements now submerged under the sea reveal that people were building villages and venturing out from them on crafted vessels. This was not one single genius invention that spread, but a spark that lit independently wherever humans lived by the water. Isolated islands were no longer prisons. Families could reunite, traders could exchange exotic shells for sharp obsidian tools, and storytellers could share new myths under different stars. This slow, steady linking of communities, this first exchange of ideas, resources, and even family lines was the quiet, essential foundation. It set the stage for everything that followed, building towards the rise of the first true masters of the ocean, whose sudden disappearance from history remains one of our greatest puzzles. A civilization without fortifications rose from the island of Crete, its power written not in conquered land but in the pathways of the sea. The Minoans created the first true maritime empire, a thalassocracy that dominated the Bronze Age Aegean. Their capital, the labyrinthine palace of Knossos, was a marvel of administration and art, a hub for a network that stretched from the coasts of Greece to the ports of Egypt and the Levant. What is most striking is what archaeologists have not found surrounding these magnificent centers: no massive defensive walls, no vast arsenals of bronze weapons. Their security, their very sovereignty, came from the water. Their distinctive ships with their high curved prows and single square sails are immortalized in vibrant frescoes. These vessels were the lifeblood of the empire, carrying coveted Cretan goods, fine pottery, aromatic olive oil, and the priceless spice saffron across the known world. In return, they brought back ideas, technologies, and artistic styles, weaving the Mediterranean into a single interactive sphere. Their influence was so profound that even the mighty Egyptians depicted envoys from Keftiu, the land of the Minoans, bringing tribute. Yet for all their reach, their voice is silent to us today. The Minoans developed a script, Linear A, a complex system of symbols that recorded their transactions and perhaps their stories. But its code remains unbroken, leaving the details of their daily lives and the true cause of their downfall shrouded in mystery. That end likely came with cataclysmic force. The volcanic island of Thera, a key Minoan outpost, exploded in one of the largest eruptions in human history. The subsequent tsunamis and ash fall would have crippled their fleet, poisoned their farmlands, and shattered the trade routes that were the source of all their power. The Minoan collapse serves as a powerful lesson, a demonstration that a society could achieve immense wealth and cultural brilliance through peaceful commerce and naval prowess alone. Their legacy, however, did not vanish beneath the waves. It was absorbed and transformed by the next great power to emerge from the Greek mainland, a more warlike people who saw the value in controlling the sea. The Minoan collapse left a power vacuum on the water, a silence soon filled by the roar of an unstoppable and mysterious force. From the murky depths of the late Bronze Age collapse emerges history's most enigmatic maritime confederation, known only as the Sea Peoples. Ancient Egyptian temple walls tell their story in stark, chilling reliefs. We see them not as builders, but as destroyers, a chaotic armada attacking the coasts of the known world. These carvings show sleek, aggressive ships filled with warriors wearing distinctive feathered headdresses, their arrival synonymous with fire and collapse. They are credited with helping to shatter the mighty Hittite Empire and battering the rich cities of the Levant, leaving a trail of scorched earth and smoldering ports in their wake. Who were they? This question has haunted historians for centuries. The Egyptians gave them names like the Peliset and the Shurden, but their true origins are one of history's great puzzles. The most compelling theory suggests they were not a single people, but a desperate coalition. Imagine groups from across the Aegean, Anatolia, and southern Europe, displaced by a perfect storm of calamities, from widespread crop failures to seismic shifts in the climate. Entire populations were set adrift, forced from their homes and onto the waves, where they turned from refugees into raiders. They built no grand cities and left no written records of their own. Their entire history is written by the empires that survived their attacks. This is a profound reminder that sea power is not always about building networks of trade. It can also be a weapon of pure, chaotic force. The Sea Peoples did not forge a lasting empire, but their naval campaigns acted like a reset button on the ancient world. They shattered the old international order, toppling kings and burning trade routes that had stood for centuries. In the ashes of that devastation, however, lay an unexpected opportunity. The old powers were broken, and the Mediterranean was suddenly a blank slate. This chaos cleared the way for a new, incredibly innovative people to rise from the coastline of what is now Lebanon. A people who would take the lessons of the Minoans and the harsh warning of the Sea Peoples to build something entirely new. Out of the ashes of the Bronze Age collapse, a new kind of power was born not from conquest but from commerce. The Phoenicians looked at the chaotic sea and saw not a barrier but a marketplace. From their narrow coastal strip in what is now Lebanon, they built an empire entirely dependent on the waves, one that would fundamentally reshape how the ancient world connected. Their cities, Tyre, Sidon, and Byblos, were not sprawling agricultural centers, but fortified hubs of industry and trade, famous for producing a vivid purple dye from sea snails, a color so rare it became synonymous with royalty across the Mediterranean. Their success hinged on a brilliant innovation in ship design, the Rewired. This was a galley with two stacked levels of oarsmen, a configuration that gave their vessels unmatched speed and agility, whether for outpacing pirates or navigating treacherous coastal currents. These ships were the engines of the first truly global trade network, carrying goods from Spain to the Indian Ocean. But their most profound export was not a luxury item. It was an idea. Tired of the cumbersome writing systems used by their trading partners, Phoenician merchants developed the world's first fully phonetic alphabet. This was a revolutionary simplification, a set of just over 20 symbols where each one represented a single sound. Suddenly, complex record-keeping became accessible, no longer the sole domain of specialized scribes. This practical tool for business spread like wildfire along their trade routes, adopted and adapted by the Greeks, who added vowels, ultimately giving rise to the script you are reading right now. Their ambition knew no bounds. They sailed beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we call the Strait of Gibraltar, into the terrifying unknown of the Atlantic, founding the colony of Carthage, which would one day challenge Rome itself. An Egyptian record even suggests a Phoenician expedition may have successfully circumnavigated Africa, a voyage that would not be repeated for over 2,000 years. The Phoenician system was the ancient internet, a vast, resilient web of commerce and communication that shrank the known world and transmitted culture, technology, and ideas with every voyage. Their model of a decentralized maritime network, powered by trade and exploration, became the ultimate blueprint. It was a blueprint that a rising land power in Italy watched with a mixture of envy and determination. A power that would decide it was not enough to emulate the masters of the sea, they had to destroy them. Far to the west, where the Mediterranean meets the Atlantic, a legendary kingdom of unimaginable wealth simply vanished. Tartessos was a name whispered by Greek historians, a civilization so rich in silver and tin that it was a crucial partner to the Phoenician trade machine. Its location, somewhere in the marshes of southern Spain, has never been conclusively found. This was not just another trading post, it was a sophisticated culture, a unique fusion of local Iberian traditions and the advanced influences of their Phoenician partners. They developed their own distinct script, a system of writing that, like the Minoan linear A, remains largely undeciphered, locking away their stories. Then, around 2,500 years ago, Tartessos disappeared from all historical records. The silence was absolute. What could erase such a powerful node from the network? Some researchers point to a growing conflict with the rising power of Carthage, a Phoenician descendant that may have seen Tartessos as a rival to be eliminated. Others propose a natural catastrophe, perhaps a massive tidal wave surging from the Atlantic to submerge its coastal cities, or the relentless silt from the Guadalquivir River slowly choking its ports and burying its foundations. The truth is, we do not know. Tartessos stands as a powerful symbol of how completely a maritime empire can be erased, leaving behind only tantalizing clues and a name that straddles the line between verified history and pure myth. This theme of a civilization lost to the waves is not unique to the Mediterranean. It is a story that repeats itself on a much grander scale, far across the world in the warm waters of the Southeast Asian archipelago. Carthage transformed a Phoenician blueprint into an empire of the waves, its dominion stretching from the coasts of North Africa to the shores of Spain and the islands of Sicily and Sardinia. This was not an empire of sprawling inland territories, but a constellation of fortified ports and trade outposts, all protected by the most formidable navy the world had yet seen. The key to their naval supremacy was the quinquereme, a terrifying evolution of the warship. Powered by 300 rowers arranged in 3 tiers, this vessel was a floating fortress designed not merely for battle but for absolute dominance. Its primary weapon was a massive bronze ram fixed to the prow, engineered to slice through the hull of an enemy ship with devastating force. This fleet was the iron wall that guarded a commercial network of breathtaking scale. Carthaginian merchant ships following routes kept as closely guarded state secrets, brought tin from the misty islands of Britain, ivory and gold from the depths of Africa, and precious spices from the east. This flow of goods created an early form of economic globalization, integrating disparate corners of the ancient world into a single Carthaginian-controlled system. The genius of this maritime strategy was demonstrated most clearly by Hannibal. His legendary march across the Alps with war elephants was a staggering feat of land-based audacity, but it was entirely dependent on the sea. Carthage's secure naval lanes allowed them to continuously supply his campaign in Italy, proving that even a land war could be won by the power of a navy. The ensuing Punic Wars were therefore a fundamental clash of philosophies, a brutal struggle between a land-based empire, Rome, built on legions and roads, and a sea-based empire, Carthage, built on ships and trade routes. Rome's ultimate victory did not just mark the end of a rival, it signaled a historic pivot. The Romans realized that to rule the world, they could not simply control the land, they had to master the sea as well. They began building their own massive fleets, adopting and improving upon Carthaginian technology, forging a new model of power that combined immense land armies with naval might. This hybrid approach would become the template for empires to come. The trireme was more than a warship, it was the engine of an idea. Athens built its golden age not just on philosophy, but on the disciplined speed of 300 rowers powering a vessel through the Aegean. This was the heart of the Delian League, a naval alliance that transformed the sea into a protective shield against the vast Persian Empire. By pooling their resources into this common fleet, the Greek city-states secured the trade routes that made them wealthy. The silver that paid for the Parthenon's marble, the timber that framed its sculptures, all of it flowed from the security provided by those sleek, bronze-rammed galleys. This maritime dominance created an unprecedented era of prosperity, funding the great tragedies of Sophocles and the philosophical inquiries of Socrates. It was a society where art and intellect could flourish precisely because the sea was a guarded highway, not a threat. Yet the Greek maritime legacy extended far beyond the Athenian coastline. From the shores of the Black Sea to the harbor of Massalia, modern-day Marseille, Greek colonies sprouted like a chain of cultural waypoints. These were not military conquests in the traditional sense, but hubs of exchange. They spread the Greek language, architectural styles, and revolutionary concepts of civic participation, planting the seeds of Hellenic culture across the known world. The true power of their thalassocracy was not merely in winning battles, but in this deliberate and lasting diffusion of a way of life. Their ships carried olive oil and wine, but they also carried the very ideas that would form the bedrock of Western thought. This demonstrates a profound shift where control of the waves became a tool for intellectual and cultural expansion, a legacy of philosophy and art that would endure long after their political power had ebbed away. This model of cultural diffusion through sea lanes would be adopted and dramatically expanded by a successor, an empire that would turn the entire Mediterranean into a single, unified Roman lake. Alexander the Great conquered the world on land, but his final ambition was to command the ocean. After securing the strategic ports of Phoenicia and Egypt, he turned his gaze eastward, commissioning a massive fleet of exploration. His vision was to chart the Arabian Sea, to find new maritime passages to India, and perhaps even to launch an expedition to circumnavigate the Arabian Peninsula. This was more than a military campaign. It was an attempt to weave the Mediterranean and Indian Ocean worlds into a single, unified network of trade and power, a thalassocratic empire on a scale never before imagined. His untimely passing, however, left these grand naval projects unfinished, the ships still waiting in their harbors, Without his singular vision to bind it together, his vast empire, built so quickly by land, fractured just as quickly among his competing generals. The successor kingdoms, like the Ptolemies in Egypt, built impressive navies of their own, but they fought each other for regional dominance. The grand, cohesive vision of a globe-spanning maritime network was shattered, replaced by smaller, competing interests. This unfulfilled dream stands as one of history's most profound what-if scenarios. What if Alexander had lived to launch his fleet? Could a combined Greco-Macedonian naval empire have permanently linked the East and West, creating a superhighway for goods and ideas centuries before the Romans even dreamed of it? The answer was lost with him, a reminder that the greatest shifts in our history are sometimes not the wars that were fought, but the voyages that never began. This pattern of a maritime network rising only to fracture and fade was not unique to the Mediterranean. Far to the east, another civilization was mastering the monsoon winds, building a trade web so vast and resilient it would connect the Roman Empire directly to the silks of China. While Alexander's successors fought over his land empire, a different kind of power was rising in the Indian subcontinent. The Mauryan Empire, renowned for its vast terrestrial conquests, also understood that true influence flowed along the sea lanes. Under the transformative reign of Emperor Ashoka, this vision took a remarkable form. After a period of intense conflict, Ashoka embraced a path of peace and ethical governance, and he chose the ocean as his messenger. His famous rock and pillar edicts, inscribed with his philosophical teachings, explicitly mention sending diplomatic missions across the sea to Hellenistic kings in Syria, Egypt, and Greece. This was not a military operation, but a conscious effort to export a philosophy of nonviolence and moral law, using the maritime highways of the ancient world. These voyages required a mastery of the Indian Ocean's greatest natural engine, the monsoon winds. For months, these powerful winds blow steadily from the southwest, carrying ships from the Arabian coast directly to India. Then they reverse, blowing from the northeast to carry those same ships home. Understanding this annual rhythm was like unlocking a celestial clockwork, turning a treacherous ocean into a predictable, scheduled route. To facilitate this exchange, the Mauryans developed major ports like Tamralipti on the Bay of Bengal. This bustling harbor became a crossroads of the world, where Indian pearls, priceless spices, and brilliantly dyed cotton textiles were loaded onto ships bound for Southeast Asia and eventually the markets of the Roman Empire. In return came gold, wine, and other Mediterranean luxuries. The Mauryan Empire was not a traditional sea-based thalassocracy. Its heart was always on land. Yet its strategic use of naval power for diplomacy and commerce reveals a crucial evolution. It demonstrates how separate maritime networks, the Mediterranean system and the Indian Ocean system, were now beginning to interlock, creating the earliest strands of a globalized trade web. This early Indian Ocean system, pioneered by empires like the Mauryans, established a foundation of routes and knowledge. It was upon this very foundation that another, far more enigmatic maritime empire would later rise, one whose cultural influence would ripple across the waves for 1,000 years, only to vanish beneath the jungle. Rome's legions marched across continents, but its true power was cemented on the water. The Mediterranean became Mare Nostrum, our sea, a declaration of total dominion. After dismantling the Carthaginian fleet, the Romans did something brilliant. They absorbed their rivals' naval expertise. They seized the sophisticated shipyards and adopted the very quinquereme designs they had once feared, rapidly constructing a professional, standing navy of their own. This force had a new purpose. It was not primarily a weapon of conquest, but a tool of imperial maintenance, a police force for the waves. Its first major campaign was to systematically eradicate piracy from the entire Mediterranean basin, transforming treacherous coastlines into safe passages. This security guaranteed the most vital flow in the ancient world, the annual grain shipments from Egypt. Millions of citizens in the city of Rome itself depended on this steady, secure maritime supply line for their daily bread. The Navy's vast cargo vessels, the corbetti, became the logistical backbone of the empire, moving not just food but also legions, taxes collected in silver, and luxury goods from every province. This unprecedented level of maritime safety created the conditions for the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. For the first and only time in history, a merchant ship could sail from the Strait of Gibraltar to the port of Jerusalem with a reasonable expectation of safety from storm, pirate, or rival state. This was more than just political control. It was the functional unification of the entire Mediterranean world. Diverse cultures from Spain to Syria were woven into a single, integrated economic system. A pottery workshop in Italy could use clay from North Africa, sell its goods in markets in France, and have its profits secured by a legal system enforced by Roman authority. The sea was no longer a separator of peoples, but a unifier, all under the watchful eyes of the Roman fleet. This achievement stands as a unique chapter in human history, a testament to how maritime control, when applied as a system of logistics and protection, can forge a unified world from a scattered coastline. Yet even this colossal empire could not sustain its grip forever, and as its power waned, the seas it had tamed would once again become a frontier of chaos and opportunity. While the Romans policed the Mediterranean, another empire was mastering the sea lanes of the south. On the rugged coast of the Red Sea, the kingdom of Aksum grew not from sprawling conquests, but from its command of the water. This African civilization became the indispensable middleman in one of history's most lucrative trades, connecting the Roman Empire's insatiable demand for luxury with the fabled riches of India. The pulse of this maritime empire beat in its great port city of Adulis, a place so vital that a Greek merchant's guidebook, The Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, detailed its anchorages and market prices. Walking its docks, you would have heard a dozen languages, seen Roman glassware being unloaded, and smelled the dense, sacred scent of frankincense being prepared for export, alongside tusks of ivory and even exotic animals destined for imperial menageries. Aksum's wealth was so profound that it minted its own gold, silver, and copper coins, a bold declaration of economic sovereignty. The discovery of these coins from Egypt to southern India and as far as Ceylon is not just evidence of trade, it is a map of their influence scattered across the ocean floor of history. In the 4th century, Aksum's king made a decision that would further bind his kingdom to the wider world: the official adoption of Christianity. This did not just change their spiritual life, it integrated them deeply into the cultural and diplomatic network of the late Roman, or Byzantine, Empire, making them a powerful Christian kingdom facing a rising tide of change. That change arrived with the swift expansion of Islam in the 7th century, which rerouted the world's economic arteries. New powers controlled the Red Sea, and the Indian Ocean trade began to flow through different channels. Slowly, inevitably, the ships stopped coming to Adulis, the harbor silted up, and the bustling port was gradually reclaimed by the desert, its memory fading into local legend. The story of Aksum is a profound corrective, a powerful reminder that Africa was not a silent bystander in ancient history. It was home to sophisticated maritime giants whose merchant fleets helped shape the flow of wealth, ideas, and culture across the ancient globe, their legacy waiting to be rediscovered beneath the sands. Far to the east, another maritime empire rose from the waterways of the Mekong Delta. the kingdom of Funan wove its dominion not from stone fortresses but from a labyrinth of canals. From the 1st to the 6th century, this was the pivotal hub, the essential middleman in the thriving trade between the colossal empires of India and China. Chinese emissaries wrote of a land of astonishing wealth, where a powerful navy patrolled the coasts and exacted tolls from every merchant vessel that passed through its strategic choke point. This was not a passive recipient of foreign culture, but an active, sophisticated participant in a globalizing network. The archaeological record reveals a society profoundly transformed by this exchange. Excavations at its ancient port of Ok-Io uncover Roman coins, Persian jewelry, and seals inscribed with Sanskrit. This was not merely trade, it was a profound cultural fusion. Funan's elites selectively adopted Hindu customs, Sanskrit courtly language, and new concepts of kingship from their Indian partners, creating a unique synthesis that would become the foundational layer for virtually all of Southeast Asian civilization. Can you envision the bustling docks where the languages of South Asia met the goods of the East, all under the watch of a local ruler who styled himself with the titles of an Indian god king? This intricate system, however, held the seeds of its own vulnerability. The empire's lifeblood was its access to the sea, and its complex canal network required constant maintenance. Over centuries, the very rivers that gave it life began to deposit their silt, slowly choking the vital ports and turning navigable channels into stagnant marshes. As its maritime arteries clogged, new powers inland, like the rising Khmer Empire, began to bypass Funan's control, establishing more direct overland routes. The kingdom that had lived by the sea inevitably faded with its receding waters. Its story is a powerful testament to how a civilization's entire destiny can be tied to its command of a single, shifting geographical feature, and how its quiet disappearance can reroute the flow of history for an entire region. A new power rose from the islands to command the most valuable choke point in the ancient world. The Srivijayan Empire, centered on the island of Sumatra, did not just inherit Funan's trade routes, it perfected the model of a maritime state. From the 7th to the 13th centuries, its dominion was the sea itself, and its throne was the Strait of Malacca. Every ship sailing between the two economic giants of China and India had to pass through this narrow, treacherous channel. Srivijaya positioned itself as the essential gatekeeper, its naval patrols ensuring that no vessel passed without paying a toll. The wealth that flowed into its harbors was staggering, transforming its capital into a city of gold, where palaces shimmered and temples reached for the sky. But this was more than a mercantile superpower, it was a beacon of intellect. Srivijaya became a world-renowned center for Buddhist scholarship, a university of the waves where monks and students from across Asia gathered to study sacred texts. The empire's influence did not spread through conquest and occupation. Instead, it wove a web of strategic alliances with coastal chiefs and riverine lords across the archipelago. Local rulers retained their autonomy, but they pledged loyalty to the Srivijayan king in exchange for protection and a share of the lucrative trade that his navy secured. This was the mandala model of power in action, a political system where influence rippled outward from a brilliant, powerful center, its authority defined not by fixed borders on a map, but by the reach of its ships and the loyalty of its partners. How does such a sophisticated network simply vanish from history? The empire's decline began when it lost its absolute grip on the strait. Shifting trade routes and the rising ambition of a distant rival, the Chola dynasty of southern India, proved catastrophic. The Cholas launched devastating naval raids against Srivijaya's heartland, not to conquer its territory, but to cripple its monopoly and seize control of the trade for themselves. These attacks shattered the aura of invincibility that had protected the Mandala for centuries. Without its economic lifeblood, the alliances that held the empire together began to fray and collapse. The central port city faded, its grand structures were reclaimed by the jungle, and its memory was nearly lost to time. Srivijaya stands as the ultimate example of a civilization that lived and died by its command of a single, slender passage of water, a hidden kingdom that once held the keys to half the world. The Chola dynasty shattered the ocean's peaceful illusion of trade. From the southern tip of India, they launched a fleet so immense it was designed not for plunder, but to rewrite the entire economic map of Asia. In the 11th century, their great emperor, Rajendra Chola, sent his armada east across the Bay of Bengal, a force of countless warships carrying thousands of soldiers. Their target was not a city, but an entire system, the Srivijayan monopoly over the Strait of Malacca. This was not a hit-and-run raid. It was a deliberate, surgical strike against the very heart of a maritime empire. The Cholas understood that the wealth flowing between China and the Indian Ocean was the ultimate prize, and they were no longer content to let a middleman control the gates. Their campaigns were meticulously planned military expeditions, the ancient equivalent of a corporate takeover by naval force. They sacked key Srivijayan ports and captured their king, a stunning humiliation that shattered the aura of invincibility surrounding the island kingdom. What is most revealing is what the Cholas did not do. They did not attempt to colonize the jungles of Sumatra or administer a distant land-based empire. Their goal was achieved the moment they broke Srivijaya's grip, forcing open the sea lanes to allow their own merchant vessels direct, untaxed passage to the wealthy ports of China. This episode forces us to reconsider ancient history. It demonstrates that Indian kingdoms could be aggressive naval imperialists, projecting power across thousands of miles of open ocean to enforce their economic will. The Chola raids, while temporary, critically weakened the Srivijayan Mandala network. Alliances crumbled as local rulers saw the central power could be challenged. The regional balance of power shifted irrevocably, creating a vacuum that new states would eventually fill. This was cross-oceanic warfare as a tool of economic policy, a concept we often associate with European colonialism, but which was being executed with stunning precision in the Indian Ocean almost 1,000 years earlier. It reveals a world far more interconnected and competitively fierce than we once believed, where control of a single map point could trigger a naval war that echoed for centuries. While the Mediterranean world fixated on its own conflicts, an unparalleled seafaring revolution unfolded across a third of our planet. The Polynesian expansion across the Pacific represents the single greatest maritime migration in human history, a feat of navigation and courage that remains almost incomprehensible. Their world was the Polynesian Triangle, bounded by Hawaii, New Zealand, and Rapa Nui, a watery realm larger than all the continents combined. To cross it, they developed vessels of stunning sophistication, the double-hulled Wa or Waka. These were not simple canoes, but massive, stable sailing platforms capable of carrying entire communities, their plants, and their animals across thousands of miles of open ocean. Their true compass, however, was not magnetic but celestial. Master navigators seated at the stern learned to read the night sky as a map, memorizing the precise rising and setting points of hundreds of stars. By day, they interpreted the subtle patterns of ocean swells, feeling how they bent around distant islands long before any land was visible. They watched the flight paths of birds and noted the colors of the clouds, weaving every natural sign into a coherent mental chart. This was wayfinding, a science of observation passed down through generations without a single written word. This diaspora was not an empire built on tribute or conquest. It was a network of kinship linked by a shared ancestry, a family of languages, and a common understanding of the sea as their ancestral pathway. Each new island settlement was not a colony, but a new branch of the same great family tree. Then, for reasons still debated by scholars, the long voyages stopped. The great double-hulled canoes that had bridged the Pacific remained closer to home. Was it a shift in climate patterns that made the old star paths unreliable? Did growing populations on the settled islands consume the specific tall trees needed to build new voyaging vessels, creating a sort of technological trap? Or had the great age of discovery simply reached its natural end, with all the known habitable lands already found? The silence that followed this voyaging pause is one of the deep mysteries of the Pacific. Yet the legacy of this lost maritime world endures. It stands as a pure, breathtaking testament to human ingenuity, a civilization that mastered the greatest ocean on Earth not through force, but through an intimate, profound conversation with the natural world. Their story challenges our very definition of an empire, suggesting that the most resilient networks are sometimes those woven from culture and courage, rather than commanded by kings. Even a river could become a sea lane for a maritime empire. Flowing north from the heart of Africa, the Nile was not just a source of water, it was a liquid highway of immense strategic power. The kingdom of Kush and its later capital of Meroe mastered this aquatic road, building a civilization that leveraged both river and sea to challenge the very empire it once emulated. The Kushites controlled the flow of immense wealth from the African interior, gold, ivory, and precious ebony wood, directing it northward to Egypt and the wider Mediterranean. But their vision extended beyond the Nile. They established a direct outlet to the wider world, a port on the Red Sea that connected their kingdom to the trade networks of Arabia and the distant markets of India. This dual mastery of riverine and maritime routes gave them a unique geopolitical advantage, making them a pivotal middleman in the ancient global economy. Their power grew to such an extent that they reversed the tide of history itself. The Kushite 25th dynasty did not just trade with Egypt, they conquered it, ruling as pharaohs and bringing a distinct Nubian influence to the traditions of the Nile. This was a profound reversal, a period when the pupil became the master, demonstrating that the flow of culture and power could run south to north, yet the foundation of this great power was fragile. Over centuries, the agricultural lands surrounding Meroe began to fail, with the creeping advance of the desert slowly choking its capacity to feed a large population. This environmental pressure, combined with the rising economic competition from the kingdom of Aksum to the east, steadily eroded Meroe's dominance. The city was eventually abandoned, its grand pyramid standing silent sentinel over the desert. The story of Kush is a crucial reminder that maritime empires were not built on saltwater alone. Control over a major river, the ultimate artery connecting a continent's heart to the open sea, was just as vital. It was a lesson that would be learned again and again by civilizations yet to rise from the riverbanks of the world. Long before Rome stamped its will upon the world, the Tyrrhenian Sea was an Etruscan lake. From their cities in central Italy, this sophisticated people launched a fleet that challenged Greek colonists and Phoenician merchants for dominance. Their warships were not the uniform vessels of a state navy, but a diverse and formidable force, often crewed by privateers licensed to patrol and protect their commercial interests. This naval muscle secured their grip on the metal-rich islands of Corsica and Sardinia, granting them a near monopoly on the copper and iron that fueled the Mediterranean economy. The reach of their trade was extraordinary. Distinctive Etruscan bronze ware and finely painted pottery have been pulled from the soil of southern France and North Africa, silent witnesses to a commercial network that stretched across the known world. They were not just traders but cultural conduits, their artistic style influencing early Roman art and their alphabet, derived from the Greeks, forming the basis for the written Latin language. Yet their vibrant story was ultimately overwritten. As Rome grew from a regional power to an insatiable republic, the Etruscan cities were gradually absorbed, their confederation broken, and their independent naval power dismantled. The Romans, who learned so much from them, became the authors of their history, often casting them as a decadent people subdued by Roman virtue. This erasure is a profound lesson. The chronicle of the ancient world is like a parchment scraped clean and written over, a palimpsest where the vibrant tales of rivals like the Etruscans linger only as faint, tantalizing traces beneath the bold script of the victors. We are left with fragments of pottery, the outlines of grand tombs, and the haunting faces of their bronze statues, all asking us what other great sea kingdoms have been lost to the silence of the waves. Their story begins not with grand monuments, but with the intricate patterns pressed into clay. Across a vast expanse of the Pacific, from the islands of New Guinea eastward to Tonga and Samoa, archaeologists find a single, unmistakable signature, a style of pottery decorated with precise, tooth-like stamps. This is the calling card of the Lapita, the true pioneers of the deep Pacific. For over 1,000 years, their distinctive ceramics trace the path of the greatest maritime migration yet attempted, a deliberate, generation-spanning voyage into the endless blue unknown. This was not a centralized empire commanding tribute from its subjects. It was a cultural network, a far-flung family of communities connected by the rhythmic voyage of the outrigger canoe. Their great achievement was the colonization of the previously uninhabited islands of remote Oceania, a leap into the void that required not just bravery, but a revolutionary maritime toolkit. They built sturdy, ocean-going vessels capable of carrying entire families, their vital planting stocks, and even domesticated animals like pigs and chickens. Their voyages were one-way trips into permanence, a conscious choice to leave the known world behind and forge a new life on islands no human had ever seen. What bound this scattered network together across thousands of miles of open ocean was a constant, gentle exchange. Canoes would travel between established settlements and new frontiers, carrying precious cargoes of shell ornaments, useful obsidian for sharp tools, and of course their signature pots. These journeys were the social lifeline, reinforcing shared traditions and a common identity in a world of overwhelming isolation. The legacy of the Lapita is profound, yet curiously intimate. They left no ruined cities or royal inscriptions. Their entire history is pieced together from fragments of their pottery scattered on beaches and buried in the soil, a quiet testament to the families who carried their culture in their canoes. They were the genetic and cultural ancestors of the Polynesians, the ones who laid the foundational stones for the great voyaging traditions to come. In mastering the sea not for conquest but for community and connection, they wrote a different kind of history, one where the most enduring empire was a family stretched across the water. A caravan does not end at a desert oasis but at a bustling port city. We often envision the Silk Road as a ribbon of sand and stone, yet its true completion happened on the water. The story of the Yuezhi Confederacy shatters this land-locked illusion. Originally powerful nomadic herders in western China, they faced a period of immense hardship, displaced by a rival confederation and forced to migrate west in a great movement of peoples. This journey, born from conflict, ultimately positioned them as the architects of a new global system. Settling in Central Asia, they transformed into the Kushan Empire, and their genius was in recognizing that the world was not divided but connected. They seized control of the land routes, the fabled Silk Road paths, but they did not stop there. Their gaze turned south to the ports of the Indian Ocean. The Kushans became the ultimate middlemen, the vital bridge between the Roman Empire's hunger for silk and the Chinese production of it, with merchant ships completing the final, crucial leg of the journey. Their capital cities became cosmopolitan hubs where Greek sculpture stood beside Buddhist stupas, and Roman gold coins were exchanged for bundles of pepper and bolts of fine cloth. This was not merely a land empire or a sea empire, it was a hybrid, a powerful fusion that understood commerce flowed like water, seeking the easiest path from source to destination, whether that path was a mountain pass or an ocean current. The rise of the Kushans reveals a profound truth. The fortunes of the mightiest steppe powers could be utterly transformed not by the size of their herds, but by their ability to access and secure the maritime networks that carried the world's wealth. They did not just control trade, they accelerated the exchange of faith, becoming pivotal patrons of Buddhism and helping transmit it along these newly integrated routes into Central Asia and China. Their story forces us to redraw the map in our minds, to see the ancient world not as a collection of separate spheres, but as a single, pulsating system where a caravan and a sailing ship were two parts of the very same journey. For the pharaohs of Egypt, the land of Punt was not just a trading partner, it was a legend made real. This was the land of the gods, a realm of mythic wealth located somewhere along the Red Sea coast. Reaching it required a monumental effort, a state-sponsored voyage that was equal parts military expedition and divine mission. The most famous of these was commissioned by the female pharaoh Hatshepsut, who immortalized the journey on the walls of her magnificent mortuary temple. These intricate reliefs are our window into this ancient exchange, showing sturdy Egyptian ships with their sails billowing, being loaded with treasures that seem almost magical. Sailors carefully stack fragrant mounds of myrrh and frankincense resin, precious incense that filled Egyptian temples with sacred smoke. They lead away strange and wonderful animals like leopards and giraffes and carry heavy logs of ebony wood and sacks of electrum, a natural mix of gold and silver. This was not a simple barter between neighbors. This was the ancient world's ultimate luxury goods run. The entire relationship was built on the sea, a maritime lifeline that supplied Egypt with the very substances of its religious and royal life for over 1,000 years. Then the record simply stops. The land of Punt vanishes from Egyptian inscriptions. The great ships stopped sailing. Why? The answer is one of Egyptology's most enduring puzzles. Perhaps the specific trading ports that constituted Punt were abandoned due to environmental shifts or local conflicts. Maybe the knowledge of the precise sea routes, a closely guarded state secret, was lost in a period of political turmoil. The loss of Punt would have been a profound economic and cultural shock, severing a supply line of materials that were central to ritual and royal display. Its disappearance signals the fragility of even the most celebrated long-distance networks. Punt stands as the ultimate lost partner, a civilization whose entire identity is defined by its connection across the water, and whose silence reminds us that some maps, once erased, can never be fully redrawn. Across the Atlantic, a different kind of maritime power was sculpted from stone and jungle. The Olmec civilization flourished along the swampy rivers and coast of the Gulf of Mexico, their influence flowing not across open ocean, but along a dense network of inland waterways. This was a riverine empire, a thalassocracy of the mangroves that moved the impossible. Their most iconic creations, the colossal stone heads weighing many tons, were quarried from mountains dozens of miles away. To transport them, the Olmecs engineered a stunning logistical feat, moving these giant basalt blocks on massive rafts down twisting rivers, a testament to their absolute command over the aquatic landscape. Their canoes became the trucks of the ancient Mesoamerican world, carrying not just stone but precious goods that would define the region's economy for centuries. They traded vibrant green jade, the beans of the cacao tree which were used as currency, and the sap of the rubber tree, a substance so novel the Olmecs may have given us the very word for the ball game played in courts across later civilizations. This commercial network was also a cultural bloodstream. A distinct and powerful artistic style traveled with the goods, its central icon being the word jaguar, a transformative figure blending human and feline features. This symbol of shamanic power and authority was adopted and adapted by emerging cultures inland. You can see its echo in the early art of the Maya and the Zapotec, a clear signal that the roots of their magnificent cultures were nourished by Olmec ideas that arrived by water. Then, around 2,400 years ago, their great ceremonial centers like San Lorenzo and La Venta were abandoned. The exact reasons remain one of Mesoamerica's great puzzles, with scholars pointing to shifts in river courses that disrupted trade or periods of social unrest. Yet the civilization's physical decline was not the end of its legacy. The trade routes they had established, the demand for jade and cacao, the very template of a complex society connected by rivers, did not vanish. These networks were simply inherited, like a set of blueprints passed to the next generation of builders. The Olmec story proves a universal truth, that the urge to connect and trade across water is a fundamental human impulse, one that shaped the birth of civilization in the Americas just as powerfully as it did beside the Mediterranean Sea. Even a freshwater lake can become the stage for naval ambition. On the placid surface of the Sea of Galilee, the Hasmonean dynasty of Judea launched a fleet that was small in scale but immense in symbolic power. In their fierce struggle for independence from the vast Seleucid Empire, these leaders realized that true sovereignty meant controlling every part of their homeland, even its largest lake. This modest navy of patrol boats secured supply lines, moved troops quickly along the coastline, and ensured their enemies could not use the water as a hidden highway into their heartland. It was a declaration that their fledgling kingdom commanded all elements within its borders, a powerful statement of self-reliance etched not in stone but on the water itself. This story, however, has a tragic second act. Centuries later, during a period of intense conflict with Rome, the lake witnessed a staggering feat of military logistics. In a brutal demonstration of imperial might, the Roman general Vespasian ordered his warships dismantled, transported overland by his legions, and reassembled on the shore of the Sea of Galilee. The subsequent Battle of Migdol was a foregone conclusion, a crushing defeat for the rebel forces trapped on the water. The Roman decision to go through such immense effort for a single lake battle reveals a profound strategic truth. It proves that the drive to dominate a waterway is a fundamental instinct for any state, emerging or established. Whether for a kingdom fighting for its life or an empire asserting total control, the command of water, from the vast ocean to the inland sea, was not a luxury, it was an absolute necessity for survival and power. The wealth of the sea built a fortress for ideas. In the shadow of its legendary lighthouse, the Library of Alexandria rose as the ultimate prize of a maritime empire, a direct creation of the Ptolemaic dynasty's command over the Mediterranean. Their strategy was as ambitious as it was systematic. Every merchant vessel that docked in the bustling harbor was met by officials whose mandate extended beyond cargo. They searched for scrolls, for codices, for any form of written knowledge. When a text was found, it was not merely borrowed, it was taken to the library scribes, meticulously copied by hand, and the fresh copy was returned to the ship's owner. The original remained in Alexandria, added to a collection that aimed for nothing less than the sum total of human understanding. This aggressive, state-funded policy of acquisition, bankrolled entirely by taxes and profits from the sea lanes, transformed the city into the undisputed intellectual capital of the ancient world. Within its halls, scholars like Eratosthenes used geometry and observations from distant wells to calculate the Earth's circumference with stunning accuracy. Inventors like Heir pioneered early steam engines and automated devices. The library was not a quiet repository. It was a vibrant, living engine of innovation, all powered by the relentless flow of information that arrived on the tides. Its eventual loss, a slow decline through a series of fires and periods of neglect, stands as one of history's most profound cultural catastrophes. The destruction of the library was more than the burning of parchment and papyrus. It was the severing of a global nerve. Entire schools of thought, scientific treatises, and literary works vanished, their insights lost for 1,000 years or more. This tragedy illustrates a chilling truth that the vast networks of maritime trade do not just carry spices and silk, they carry the very lifeblood of civilization, its collective memory and its future potential. When those sea lanes are broken or forgotten, the light of knowledge can flicker and die, leaving the world in a deeper, longer night. The line between a pirate and a king was often just a matter of perspective. Across the ancient world, piracy was not a fringe crime but a fundamental political force, a dark current running alongside the rise and fall of every maritime empire. When a powerful state like Rome enforced its peace, piracy retreated to the shadows of forgotten coastlines. But the moment that central authority faltered, pirate fleets surged forth to fill the power vacuum, transforming trade routes into realms of opportunity and terror. This cycle reveals a profound truth, that the control of the sea was never a permanent possession, but a constant, brutal negotiation. The notorious Cilician pirates of the Mediterranean did not just raid shipping lanes, they built a virtual state along the rugged coasts of Anatolia, with fortified harbors and their own sophisticated intelligence networks. Their challenge became so severe that they once captured a young Julius Caesar, holding him for a hefty ransom. His subsequent pursuit and execution of his captors was as much a personal vendetta as it was a political statement about who truly ruled the waves. This pattern repeated centuries later with the Vikings, whose initial raids from Scandinavia were pure piracy, seeking portable wealth from undefended monasteries. Yet their leaders, men like Rollo in Normandy, quickly learned that a consistent stream of tribute was more valuable than a single chest of plundered silver. They leveraged their naval terror into negotiated settlements, evolving from raiding chieftains into recognized dukes and kings, their descendants sitting on thrones across Europe. This eternal struggle forced empires to innovate. The very design of warships, from the Roman Liburnian to the swift galleys of the Byzantine Empire, was often a direct response to the need to hunt down and destroy these fast, elusive pirate vessels. The immense cost of maintaining a standing navy, of building lighthouses and garrisoning countless coastal forts, was a fiscal burden driven primarily by the need to keep this shadowy counterpart in check. The story of piracy is the story of the sea's inherent anarchy, a relentless pressure that tested the strength of every thalassocracy and, in doing so, forever shaped the technology, economy, and very structure of the state itself. The climate itself can become an empire's most formidable adversary. For civilizations built entirely upon the sea, even a subtle shift in the winds or a slow retreat of the rains could unravel centuries of achievement in a single generation. The Great Late Bronze Age collapse offers a haunting case study. Across the eastern Mediterranean, the grand palaces of the Minoans and the fortified cities of the Hittites fell into silence around the same time, not merely from invasion, but from a climate event of staggering scale. Tree rings and sediment cores tell a story of prolonged, severe drought and a sudden global cooling. Crops failed repeatedly, the price of grain skyrocketed, and the intricate trade networks that exchanged Cypriot copper for Anatolian silver and Egyptian gold simply snapped under the strain. This was not a single war that toppled these powers, but a slow-motion unraveling where hunger and hardship pushed entire populations to become refugees on the move, perhaps even forming the desperate coalitions history would later call the Sea Peoples. The sea, once a reliable highway, became a barrier to survival when the lands it connected could no longer feed their people. This pattern of environmental pressure repeats across the map of lost thalassocracies. The mighty port of Ok-Io, the heart of the Funan Empire, was gradually choked by the very silt that had once made the Mekong Delta so fertile. As the canals filled in, the deep draft trading vessels could no longer reach the docks, and the economic lifeblood of the kingdom slowed to a trickle. In the Indian Ocean, the predictable rhythm of the monsoons was the metronome that set the pace of trade for Srivijaya and the Cholas. A lasting shift in that pattern, a delay of the rains or a strengthening of the winds, would have stranded merchant fleets, spoiled perishable cargo, and rendered the carefully calculated voyages impossible. These ancient crises reveal a profound and unsettling truth. A maritime empire's greatest strength, its deep connection to the natural world for food, transport, and weather, is also its greatest vulnerability. Their prosperity was a delicate negotiation with the environment, and when that climate agreement was broken, their power evaporated as quickly as the morning mist on a becalmed ocean. Reflecting on these silent collapses from millennia past, we are confronted with a powerful legacy. They stand as quiet sentinels, reminding us that our own complex global systems, so deeply linked to the sea, are having a similar conversation with a changing world today. From the Minoan Thalassocracy to the Polynesian voyages, the story of the ancient world is inextricably woven with the rise and fall of maritime empires. These lost powers were not mere footnotes in history, they were the engines of the first globalization. Their ships were the conduits of culture, carrying not only silks and spices but entire alphabets, religious ideas, and artistic styles across the known world. They were the great innovators, giving us everything from streamlined ship designs to revolutionary methods of celestial navigation. Their sudden disappearances created profound ruptures in the human story, historical silences we are still working to fill with each new